They're usually about that big around, looks kind of like a clod of dirt, but it's not. It's actually related to a mushroom.
When you're in the mood to spoil yourself with a little luxury, it's a comfort to know that the culinary world is always there with its delicacies. Problem is, those delicacies can be a little elusive sometimes.
And they feed them beer every day, and they get massages every day until eventually the meat is just perfectly marbled, and then...
Sometimes they're not actually elusive. They're flat out impossible to find.
Well, yeah, I guess it is a pretty nice life until, but...
Never mind. But sometimes you get lucky, and you find that perfect bite or sip, and you think, score. And then you look and see that the price is a little out of your range. And then, of course, sometimes it's just way, way out of your range. But don't despair. There is hope.
Come to think of it, there is one food which, despite its luxe rep, is conveniently available, surprisingly affordable, too. The trick is to know how to buy it, how to store it, how to cook it, and especially how to eat it. Sound like food styles of the rich and famous? Nah. Lobster here is just plain old goodies. Ask 10 people to make a list of their top 5 favorite foods. And I'm willing to bet that 9 out of 10 of those lists will include the word lobster. Ask the same 10 people to make a list of the top 5 foods they're afraid to cook, and I'm betting 8 out of 10 of them will say lobster. Now, I suspect that this is the result of an evil scheme hatched by restaurateurs to convince us regular folks that we cannot prepare our own lobster. Now, when I say our own lobster, I mean our own lobster. America, meet Omaris americanus, or American lobster, a.k.a. the Maine lobster, and I must say, the biggest one that I've personally ever encountered. Now, there are about 30 different varieties of lobsters scuttling around the seafloor out there, but this is the lobster that lobster lovers think of when they think of lobster. Now, it's completely understandable that since we just met, we would have a few misconceptions to clear up. And that's why I'm here at Inland Seafood, because about 35,000 pounds of lobster go through this room every day, all under the watchful eye of Joel Knox. Hi, Joel. How you doing?
Hey, Alton. How are you doing?
Good. Lobsters taste the same year-round?
Not really. Not really. Lobsters are like all crustaceans, like a shrimp, like a crab. The only way a lobster grows is it sheds its exoskeleton.
Molts.
It molts. It sheds its shell, and then as it sheds its shell, it grows. This lobster, after it sheds, will probably gain, when it's fully matured, around 1/4 to 1/3 of a pound.
Okay. Do we ever eat them that way? I mean...
Oh, yes. In Maine, when you go up there, a new shell lobster, which is another way of saying a soft shell lobster, is usually what you see.
Does the meat actually taste different?
I think the meat on a hard shell is a little bit firmer. I think the meat on a soft shell is less firm, but I think it's sweeter.
Which leads me to my next question. When Joel Knox takes home lobsters, what does he do with them?
I have more recipes for lobsters than Bubba Gump had for shrimp.
Once you've scoped a promising prospect, pick it up by grabbing hold of either side of the thorax, just above the walking legs. Okay, believe me, none of its parts can reach any of your parts from this angle. Now, if your monger gives you grief about you wanting to take a test drive like this, tell him or her that you'll be happy to wear disposable gloves. If they still balk at the idea, okay. Move your lobster around. See how he moves back. Okay? The more he moves, the better. Lively is good. Lethargic. Now, give the thorax a gentle squeeze. Does the shell feel rigid, or is there a good bit of give? Give means a soft shell lobster that's recently molted, and that means the meat's going to be on the puny side, and a good bit of the weight that you're going to pay top dollar for is probably water. Okay? Now, this guy looks good, and at £1 3/4, a very respectable meal for one. Now, what transportation are you prepared to supply? Well, I have a cooler with a cold pack in the bottom and a few sections of today's newspaper, wet but not dripping. Perfect. Is that going to be it for you? You know, I think I'll go for a number 2. Okay. Let's say just under 1.5 pounds. Yeah? May I? Certainly. Ooh, lively. And a girl to boot. A match set. Isn't it romantic? Lobster eating comes with some philosophical baggage.
Aside from faceless shellfish like mussels or maybe the occasional crab, lobsters are the only critters most of us will ever dispatch in the comfort of our kitchens. If this troubles you, please consider the animal kingdom. Down at the bottom, of course, we have germs. Higher up, flatworms, and then way up in phylum Chordata, subphylum Mammalia, just above the wombats and the lemurs, us, man. Now, way over here in the other branch, we find phylum Anthropoid, subphylum Crustacean, and the lobster. What's interesting is that just next door, in subphylum Una Maria, we've got... Actually, a lobster brain's more like a grasshopper, but then we really do have to use the term brain very, very loosely. The point is, a lobster is a bug, and if you can stomp a roach or smush a spider just for crossing your path, you shouldn't get too teary-eyed about sending a lobster to sleep with the fishes, especially if you're going to eat it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't opt for a humane method, and morbid or not, it does seem to be a subject that a lot of people have strong opinions on. Actually, there are only two methods recognized by the Geneva Convention. The first one is instantaneous, and if I were a lobster and somebody gave me a choice, this is the method I would choose. Take a chef's knife, big, heavy one, and place the point right in this crack down the head, right behind the eyes by about an inch. Okay, if you think you're up to it, put the knife right in that crack and then push straight down to the board and chop forward, thus bifurcating the head. The bug will be dead instantaneously, no fuss. Now, if you don't feel you're up to it, well, let's chill. 15 to 20 minutes in here, and they won't feel a thing when the time comes. That's what the experts say. I'm not a lobster, so I can't say, but I do know that it will slow down their metabolism significantly and numb them to the point that they won't even move when you get them out. By the way, you don't need a lid here. Despite that scene in Annie Hall, lobsters are not terrestrially inclined. In America, tradition demands that lobsters be boiled. The problem is that doing it right requires a lot of water, nearly a gallon per lobster. And most home ranges need at least an hour, if not an hour and a half, to bring that much liquid to a boil. Then you've got to put the bugs in, then you've got to watch for the water to come back to a boil, and then you've got to time it. And even though you do time it, they still end up waterlogged. And then, for dessert, you got a whole big old pot of smelly hot water to get rid of. It's a hassle, which is why I don't do it. I steam. Just fill your widest pot with an inch of water and put it over high heat. Oh, you like my rocks? Got them from a stream nearby. I don't advocate doing this with your fine nonstick cookware, but there are a lot of advantages. They fit in any pot. They heat very evenly. They help steam to distribute evenly. And, oh, get this. Because they provide friction, they'll actually help the lobster tails not curl as much when they cook. You can get the same effect from tying a chopstick lengthwise to the underside of the tail. Try that once and you'll get some rocks. I also like the fact that you can add a little flavor with fresh herbs. Got some parsley and some thyme and some rosemary here. Sounds hauntingly familiar. And you just put this right down on the rocks. And since they're actually kind of dry on top, you get a little better flavor out of them. But don't put them in until the lobster's ready. In the meantime, while this builds up a head of steam, we'll review some lobster hardware. In addition to the pot and the rocks, you're going to need some kitchen shears. Or better yet, tin snips. You're going to need an oven mitt. Or a welding glove. You'll also need a pan. A half-sheet pan will do just fine, or so would a cookie sheet. Heavy aluminum foil. One rolling pin. A few sprigs of rosemary. A little bit of the thyme, just right on top of the rocks. And a little bit of parsley. Time for a wake-up call. Looks like they're out. Now, don't go shaking around the pan. You might wake them up. Do this fast. Bug number 1, in. Bug number 2, in. Count to 10. Your bugs are already dead. With Within a couple of minutes, all signs of life, random or otherwise, are gone, and the shells have turned bright red. Now, the responsible pigment called astaxanthin was always there, but it was connected to a series of proteins which produced the original dark mottled look. The heat cooked the proteins, which in turn let go of the astaxanthin. So now it's red. Now, to continue cooking, cover, drop the heat to medium, and set your timer for... This guy is still mostly raw, and we're going to keep him that way. By shocking the lobster in ice water, we can halt the cooking process immediately. Now, this is an example of par cooking, or partially cooking something that you plan to finish off later. It's a time and labor-saving measure, and in this case, it gives us a nicely dead lobster. But the problem with lobster is that as soon as it expires, its digestive system seeks revenge by allowing gastric juices to seep into the meat, thus turning it into mush. But this can be avoided by removing a few parts. In 10 to 15 minutes, your bug will be ready to go. Now, we've got to get at those parts, those gastric parts, which are inside here. We also want to get to the tail meat. So here's how I do it. Take the tip of your chef's knife and place it right at the dividing line down the thorax. Put your other hand on the other side, holding the shell together, and split. One cut, and then just slowly crack all the way down. Now, grab both sides of his head, roll him over onto his back. Now, basically, we want to carry on this cut all the way down the tail. The reason it's easier to do this way is that now the harder shell is facing the board. So just slowly work your way through the tail meat. There's going to be a lot of cracking sounds. That's okay. Now, when you're sure you're all the way through, you can just kind of crack them open. I didn't say it was going to be pretty inside. There are some parts that we need to remove. Mostly things like liver and stomach and things like that. Just sweep your hand in and grab hold and pull it out. Now, truth is a lot of lobster lovers are at home cringing right now because these are prized parts, especially the liver or tamale. But since lobsters are often crawling about in polluted waters, I don't like to do that because the pollution and other contaminants can lodge themselves in that liver. We've got the lobster meat, which is just starting to turn translucent, but it's still, culinarily speaking, raw. And we've got this nice open cavity area. Now, it would be really great to put some stuffing in there. Problem is that stuffing would require extra meat. Of course, if you know where to go, that's not a problem. See? Beginning lobster lovers often fawn over the tail and claw meat, but true lobster lovers know that locked inside here is some really good eats. The problem is getting at it. I've literally seen guys kind of blow out a lung trying to suck that stuff out of there. The way to do it is to use simple tools. First, you may need to cut off the joint with your tin snips. You can do this with shears too. Sometimes they come off, sometimes they don't. There you go. That gives you clear access to the insides. Then one at a time, take your rolling pin to it and just roll the meat out. Look at that. Pure lobster meat. That's going to make great stuffing. Believe it or not, there's probably close to an ounce of meat locked away inside these little guys. For each lobster that you plan to stuff, sweat 2 tablespoons of finely chopped onion and 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. Over low heat for about 3 minutes or until the onions become translucent. Then add about a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly minced lemon zest and about a tablespoon of chopped scallions. You could use chives for this, but I think I like the snap of this a little bit better. And just toss that around for just a few seconds just to work everything together. And then add the lobster leg meat. Now, when you put this in, don't just dump it in the pan. Kind of crush it out in your fingers as you go. That'll help to break up the meat and evenly distribute it through the stuffing, which will guarantee you better flavor. There. Now, making sure the heat is on low, toss for about a minute, just long enough to heat through the leg meat. Now, grind on a bit of black pepper. There. And next up, 5 crackers. I'm not going to tell you what kind these are. I think you already know. Just crush them right into the pan. Don't worry about getting them even. You want big chunks, you want little chunks. And now turn off the heat and toss until the crackers have soaked up all the juice in the pan. Now, for some reason, it looks like they're not going to be able to soak it all up. Add more crackers. The whole point here is that we have enough absorptive power left over to soak up whatever juice comes out of that lobster. This looks really dry and crumbly. Time to stuff. Now, before we actually get to stuffing, we need to take just a moment and talk about claws. Now, had these been soft shell lobsters, odds are very good that these claws would only be about half full of meat, in which case they would probably cook at about the same time it would take the tails to cook. But these are hard shell claws, and so they are probably almost full, which is a good thing for us when we eat. But it does mean that they will take longer to cook. The answer? Give them a head start. Just cut them off right at the joint of the body, like that. Remove the band, because plastic is not good eats, and put it right on the pan. Repeat on your other bug. Notice that this was a left-handed lobster. And right into the 450-degree oven with no other ceremony necessary. We're going to give that 4 minutes head start. 4 will be enough. Now we can actually turn to the stuffing portion. We're going to need a platform to kind of hold these guys steady. And I'm a big fan of heavy-duty aluminum foil. So lay that out and just put down your bugs, kind of opposing each other. Now we'll just line them up like that and kind of crinkle the foil so that they kind of lay even with each other. We're looking for a nice, level reservoir, as it were, or else the stuffing is going to fall out. We don't want them to roll at all. That looks good. Now, just take a spoon and add the stuffing. What you do not want to do is to pack the stuffing right into the cavity. Because if you do that, there's no way it's going to absorb anything. It'll just become a big solid knot of crackers and meat and seasonings, which won't be good. Just pile it in, but do not push down. Now, the last thing we need is a little bit of lubrication, a little fat for the surface of the tail meat. And for that, I just like regular olive oil. Extra virgin actually will do the trick. And just kind of pour it on your brush and lube it up. You could also do this with butter, but since we're going to be serving butter with this later, I like the additional flavor involved here. No salt, no pepper at this point. Pepper would probably burn in the oven. Now, the claws have had a nice little head start, so just slide your homemade pan right next to it. There. And set your timer for, well, that would depend on your lobster now, wouldn't it? There, everything is done at the same time. Now, since the body basically makes its own bowl, you can just move this straight out to a plate. I like to line mine with some greens just to provide some friction so that I don't let that slide off on the way to the dinner table. Now we have this to deal with. Now, this is not as easy. You deliver this to the table and everybody will just stare at you for a few hours. Now, at French restaurants, what they do is they basically break this off from the rest of the arm, like that. Save that great meat in there. And they take this, they lay it down on the board, and you take the back of your chef's knife, and you go right in between the joint and that first spine. And if you've got a good blade and a little confidence, you can. I just don't have that kind of confidence, which is why I have a motto: in channel locks we trust. This is how I do it. Just put the fat side of the knuckle right there in between that joint, and squeeze until you hear a sickening crunch. That's a sickening crunch. Now just grab, still hot, grab the pincher and move it back and forth once for another crunch, and then another crunch. And then you should be able to slide out the meat. Get it wiggled up. There you go. And that other piece will slide out like that. Now, here's the fun part. Take your little finger right into that open joint. Feel around, and you ought to be able to push the meat straight out of the socket. It's a little bit of work, But that is worth the work. Just move that and serve it right on top of the rest of the lobster like that. Now, since you have done all the work, the diner doesn't have to do anything but pick up a fork and squeeze on some lemon. If you want to give them the work, that means the steamed lobster. All right, one more. We hope that we've convinced you that lobster is well within your ways and means. Think of it as an investment in pleasure that you are now fully ready to maximize. Just remember the rules. Be very particular when you purchase. Transport and store properly, kill humanely, and prepare very, very basically. Oh, and do not waste a morsel. Even these shells are well on their way to becoming lobster butter or crustacean broth. Of course, that will have to be another episode of Goodies.
Goodies!